Vaccines are a complex subject. Welcome in. Much love, Trav here, and we're going to have a three-dimensional conversation, something I love to do, and we're on a roll covering some really interesting topics. So why not talk about vaccines? I know the whole conversation has been dead for about 6 months, but it came up tonight, and I wanted to talk about it from a kind of a rational, three-dimensional, multifaceted, multi-perspective approach that we don't see anywhere. It's just shocking to me how limited most people's perspective is, where the one side is vaccines are bad, or they're characterized as that, I just don't trust vaccines, etc. And the other side is like, you're fucking crazy idiots, do you want polio and smallpox vaccines eliminated? That shit, you morons, right? There's no like in-between discussion, which is what I'm trying to do, is reconcile that there's pretty obviously pros and cons, and the true answer is extremely complex. What I mean by this is, there are complications from vaccines that everyone knows about. They're provable. That's not a conspiracy. So in the lifespan of any vaccine, there becomes a threshold where the cons outweigh the pros. Yes, smallpox is gone and polio is mostly gone because of vaccines, but we don't vaccinate against them anymore because the cons outweigh the pros. You can get smallpox from smallpox vaccines. It's happened. There's been outbreaks from that in the past. We learned the hard way that there are serious pros to this, and there's a very, there's not even a way to measure that threshold where the correct one is, where do you draw the line? Do we do we trust these basically big medicine to really draw that line appropriately for public health, or are they going to make this decision for private profit? It's very, very fair to be distrustful. It's like, well, sack up, it's good for society, get this whooping cough vaccination. Like, why the fuck do I want to stick a needle in myself for whooping cough when no one's getting this anymore? It's like, it's totally, totally rational to be like, I want a vaccine for this thing and that thing, but not that thing or that thing, So that's where the rational discussion gets lost, is in the question is not, are vaccines good or bad? Is there a vaccine conspiracy? These are just, these aren't really productive questions. The questions are like very complex. Where do we draw the threshold of discontinuing vaccine? What percentage of immunity do we want in this society? How many years do we want with a disease under X percentage before we discontinue that vaccine? How do we measure the downsides of it and compare it to the pros, and how do we, these are the questions we should be asking, and they're extremely complex, and they're not controversial, they're not conspirational. It's just like, where do we draw the line? So some people draw the line for themselves, and they're called crazy for it, and they're let's have this discussion. So what do you think? How do we even measure that? It seems really difficult to do, how do we measure the pros and the cons, basically? And why can't people have three-dimensional discussions like this where there's not black and white, it's just very complex? What do you think? I'm curious. Let's have a conversation. We also have conversations like this on Snapchat. Travis D. Wu, snap me. And we will continue stuff like this. So let me know what you think. Much love. Let's have a discussion.